Hey everyone, Synthetic Future here, and today I want to talk a little bit about probably the two coolest modules we have in our micro modules bundle, and that's the multiplexer and the demultiplexer, but also the voltage controlled multiplexer and the voltage controlled demultiplexer. Now these are long words, so we're just going to use the shorthands, and that's a muxer and a demuxer. It's a little bit shorter. And these things are often considered somewhat complicated, but I don't think it's all that complicated. Once you get to know them a little bit, they are pretty accessible and incredibly powerful because they allow you to really create a lot of variations in your patches without having to make exponentially more modules, which is always a good thing because it cuts down on the complexity of your patch and just makes it a little bit easier to control everything. Now, for the sake of getting to start somewhere, we are just going to toss our voltage controlled MUXer and DEMUXer to the side. We are going to ignore everything, especially the right side of the screen. And we're just going to focus a little bit on the MUXer and the DEMUXer. Now, conceptually, this is pretty simple. A MUXer allows you to take multiple inputs and send them to one output. But unlike a mixer, you only output one of the inputs at a time, and you can cycle through these inputs. Now, the way our MUXer works is you have the 8 inputs. You can then control how many triggers makes it switch to the next input. You have a retrigger to set it back to 1, and you have a trigger to advance the steps. The output is at the bottom, and that's basically all there is to it. So let's take a little look at what this looks like in action. Now, this might look a little bit intimidating at first, but let's just quickly go over what we have going on here. We have two DC sources, and these are set from 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And these go into the MUXer inputs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've set it up that there is a 4 count. And just to make things visible, the output of the MUXer is going to this voltmeter. And I have a counter that shows how far in the sequence we are. So let's reset. So we are .1. After 4 counts, we're at .2. Then we go to .3, .4, .5, etc. So it takes a new input every 4 counts. And that new input dictates the value, which is set by these DCs. If we were to change the count to, for instance, 5, I need to set it to 5 here as well, you will see that at 5 it will switch over to the next value. So this is great if you have things that you want to change every X counts, and that's the first demonstration we will be doing actually. We're just going to create 2 patterns, and we're just going to cycle through those patterns. So let's get that going. All right, so here we have our 2 step sequencers, just with randomized values. We have the first step sequencer going to MUXer input 1, the second input to MUXer number 2. Because we have 8 steps, I'm going to have the counter set to 8. So after 8 steps, the full sequence, it will switch to the second input, which is the second sequence. And just to make it a little bit easier to not have to fill every slot, because you can also alternate all the way down, I just made a counter that after 16 counts, it resets the MUXer, so it goes back to step 1. So if we were to run this, and there you go, now it alternates between the 2 sequencers without having to build out a more elaborate patch. And if I want to add more sequences, I can simply add another sequence. I'm just going to randomize it. Once again, give this a little trigger, a retrigger, input this into the third slot, and now I need to set this to 3 times 8. Click the button. And there we go, now it cycles first, second, third, and then back to the first. And this is pretty powerful because this allows you to create pretty elaborate sequences, like doing 3 of the same measure and then 1 variation measure. So for instance, if I were to put these into 1, 2, and 3, and then have the fourth be different, and just to make it easy, 1, 2, 3, and the fourth be different, eliminate this one. And now and there you go. This makes it pretty easy to make pretty elaborate patches with variations while keeping consistency, because you can pretty effectively control these patterns without too much effort. And that's what makes MUXers really cool. They're very efficient space savers. And you can also use this to have several synth voices and to alternate between them. Just input the sound signal into the inputs, and then with the counter you can switch every X beats to a different sound, which is pretty interesting. Now, in some instances you might want a little bit more control, and that's where the voltage controlled MUXer comes in handy. Now, the voltage controlled MUXer is much the same as the normal MUXer, but instead of the counter you have a selector, and this selector allows you to select the channel. Now, the default mode is a mode in voltage, which means that every 0.625 volts the channel will switch, and this allows you to control what is happening. If we were to play around with this a little bit, we can make a nice little example, and we can use our sequencers just like before. What I'm going to do now is put sequence 1 into 1, put sequence 2 into 2, but we are going to have a little bit of fun with sequencer 3. Now, sequencer 3 will be used to select the channel. So if it's at O, it will be channel 1. If it is above 0.625, it will be channel 2. So let's put this at 0.7. Or at least above. Let's zero that out. 0.7, 0. You don't have to be super precise with this because you have a bit of range. Alright, this is going to the selector, this is going to the pitch, and now I've made a mistake because I'm clocking this last sequencer way too fast. I actually need to clock this every 8 steps. So I need to make a second clock in 1/1 time. And now we should have a little bit more success. Alright, so now if we trigger it, if I, for instance, want to do that 3-3-1 pattern, I can just zero these out. So now if I run it, there we go, and that's the VMUXer. So it's the same as the MUXer, but it allows you to control which step is selected, which also means you can go backwards instead of just forwards, which is a pretty neat function. And you can of course just switch all over the place with step sequencers, for instance. You can create some pretty wild patterns. Now, aside from voltage mode, you also have a nodes mode and a node clipping mode. If you want a little bit more control, for instance, with a MIDI controller, you can use these modes to use your MIDI controller node values to switch the active port, which is pretty cool. Adds a little bit of a live playing capability to the entire thing. So that's MUXers. So let's quickly talk a little bit about DEMUXers, because those seem a little bit less intuitive. And for this, actually, I'm going to keep my MUXer in here for now, but I'm just going to make sure that it only sends out our first sequencer. So let's just move all this to the side, and let's take a little look at the DEMUXer. Now, the normal DEMUXer, just like the MUXer, just has a count input, so every X counts, it sends to a different output. I'm going to use that first, actually. Let's use that first. So what can we do with this? Well, actually we can do some fun stuff. We can, for instance, take this pitch. We can input it into the DEMUXer. And we have a clock. There we go. Going to set it to 8. And what we're going to do here is we are going to use a set of quantizers. We're going to set these to different scales. Let's try to find something that is pretty different. That's pretty different. So let's output 1, 3, 5, and 7 here. And let's output 2, 4, 6, and 8.
Enhance, 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 enhance.
Here. We are going to output these to our input of our voice. And what this effectively does is it takes the sequence and it runs it through the first quantizer first for a Ionian scale, for an E Ionian scale, and then it runs it through the second quantizer for an F Lydian, and it will alternate between those scales for every sequence. So we're just going to hit retrigger, and let's see what happens. You can actually see the output move down here. So now it's on the left, and then it moves right. So that's pretty cool. This allows you to do the same sequence in different chord progressions fairly easily. And again, with the voltage DEMUXer, it's much the same process as the voltage MUXer. You can control the sequence using the selector, same modes, so you can also control this with a keyboard controller with the node settings, for instance, or with the voltage settings. And this allows you to create pretty elaborate little patterns. Now, just to give this a little bit more of an interesting use case, because we have this going right now, I'm going to turn back the sequence to switch between sequences. So we're just going to put it anywhere above 0.7 every other step. Alright, it's going. And then we're going to grab another MUXer. And we're going to grab some Euclidean sequencers. 2 will do the trick just nicely. We're going to clock these up, of course, and re-trigger them up. Put the outputs into alternating slots. Make sure this is set to 8 counts. Re-trigger here as well. Trigger here. And this output is going to go to our gate. And now we can just move these values around a little bit. Let's speed it up a little bit. Now without context this sounds pretty random, but if we add just a little bit of context, and for this I'm just going to grab a quick drum sequence, which is also using MUXers to create variations. And we're just going to clock this up. 16th notes is what I've recommended to use. So I'm just going to follow my own advice and make sure I have a 16 note going into this trigger. Going to get a re-trigger. We are going to have a mixer. So let's actually get console in here as well. Now, arguably, console is a little bit overkill for this, but hey. It's better to have a little bit too much than not having enough. And there we go. So this way we can use MUXers and DEMUXers to create pretty elaborate patterns without having to do a whole lot of complexity in our patch. We can keep things fairly small and we can keep things fairly flexible. If we want to change the scales, we can just change the scales right here. For instance, to a G minor and something that doesn't clash horribly, which could be a C, I guess, major. if you want to change up patterns, you can totally do that as well. Make things a little bit less erratic. That's a complete possibility. But for the scope of this video, that's just the thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. MUXers and DEMUXers. Very useful tools. Looks a little bit complex when you grab them for the first time, but I'm sure that if you experiment with them a little bit, you will quickly find out just how flexible and powerful they are and how much they are going to help you with patching. So that's it for this video. It's already a long enough video. I hope you have fun with our micro modules, and if you have any suggestions or comments or things you're missing in the bundle, drop them down below, and for now, see you in the next one.